All right, let's move on to Penn State and USC. Penn State wins by 3 in overtime. The first half, this felt like, oh my gosh, James Franklin's done it again. He's found a way to come out flat in another big game, traveling across country or not. I mean, this is why I closed the window infamously in the offseason on Penn State's championship hopes, because I just didn't think that they were going to be able to win enough of these big games. But to their credit, they come back. They find a way to beat the Trojans. What do we make, though, of Penn State's continued struggles against teams with a pulse? USC is not even that good of a team, I don't think. They have really good pieces. They have some good things going for them, but oh my goodness, Penn State refuses to put together a complete performance against a team with a winning record.
Yeah, they like to play up or down to their competition. It feels like they really like to just show up for a game, and it's almost like they understand that they're entertainment and they're on TV and they're like, "Oh, we're going to give you a show, all right. A Bowling Green's coming to town. You want to watch a good football game today? Here we go." And it almost seems like that's what they want to give us. And so we appreciate you from like an entertainment perspective, but dang it, Penn State, like, come on, like, we know they're better than this. And one of the things that I brought up going into this game was, Penn State's looking really good. They're the better team. They really shouldn't struggle in this. One of the things I wanted to see was, Drew Aller. I wanted to see him kind of let it rip a little bit, right? I wanted to see him start to throw that thing a little further down the field and put up some big passing numbers. It felt like he was kind of waiting to break out in that. And oh boy, did he let it rip, just not always to the right team. He goes for 391, 2 touchdowns, and I'm looking at that saying, hey, not bad. And then you got to see that 3 in the interceptions column and say, oh, Drew, what are we doing here, buddy? What is the problem? And so I'm glad he was letting it rip, and I'm glad that was, kind of what they needed to do to get back into this game. But yeah, man, like, why be in that spot in the first place, right? Why did you get yourself into this position in the first place? And I'm asking them, what did I see today that makes me think Penn State's going to go compete for this thing? Because yeah, they get to play up and down, but you play a team like Ohio State, and they're going to make you pay for that. And you go throw 3 picks against Ohio State, they'll say, thank you, and go take those all to the house and, convert those into touchdowns on the ensuing drives, and then that's it. So I am really nervous about Penn State. I think they're a good football team. Like, I really think they're a good football team. I think they got the pieces. I've seen them play well, but I mean, come on, win a game by a big margin, win a game against a quality team by a big margin. I don't even know if you can call USC a quality team, but like, win a game that we're expecting you to win by a couple of touchdowns, please.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the problem. Like, they're always just a good football team. And yeah, they beat the teams they're supposed to beat. They lose to Michigan. They lose to Ohio State. I'm going to cut them a little slack because obviously, Vegas had them favored by 3.5, 4 points. They won by 3. That's pretty much kind of on par. And, we can blame it on jet lag, maybe. You can blame it on, whatever you want to in the first half, just kind of asleep at the wheel. But they just, again, in the second half, they turned it on. The problem with Penn State is in their offense is they don't have, other than Tyler Warren, obviously, and we'll get to him here in a second, but they've got, before him, they've got 2 playmakers on their offense, and they're not at wide receiver. It's Katron Allen and it's Nick Singleton. And it's kind of the same deal with Alabama. You got 2 guys on your offense. It's Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams. If you neutralize those guys or one of those guys, who do you go to? And we saw a couple of catches from Julian Fleming. We thought he'd be a lot more involved in the offense by now, but big catches from him down the stretch. But I'm still just worried in the future, obviously, for that Ohio State game coming up in a couple of weeks. But I don't see where Aller's going to be able to go when he gets in trouble, when he gets all, happy feet back there.
Mm-hmm. That loss, losing Keandre Lambert-Smith after spring was devastating, right? And you mentioned Julian Fleming, former 5-star from Pennsylvania, went to Ohio State, didn't really do a ton there, comes back home. It's supposed to be this reunion. 2 catches for 33 yards today, and they're important catches. They're both on 4th down, if I'm not mistaken. I know the second one was for sure the game extender on 4th and long there. So contributing when the team mattered, needed it the most. But you're right. Like, other than Tyler Warren, who, I mean, just spoiler, my water cooler hero of the week, 17 catches, 224 yards as a tight end and a tutter. He also, oh, by the way, throws a completion for 9 yards in that game. I mean, the guy just did everything. It was incredible how USC could not figure out where 44 was at any given time. I mean, normally it's a little bit more difficult when you've got, okay, all right, Jeremiah Smith, right, for Ohio State. Yeah, it's a little hard to contain him. You can know where he is, but boy, he's like smoke. You just can't ever catch him. We're talking about a tight end, guys. I mean, just double team him, throw a safety on him, figure it out. USC didn't do that. Tyler, you mentioned Penn State comes roaring out of the half. They're down 20-6 at the half. I really was concerned if the Nittany Lions were even going to be able to limp out of the locker room in the second half, but they do. They roar back. They win the third quarter. USC, I was more disappointed with how their defense failed to adjust early on in that second half. But then even still, guys, USC has every chance to win this stinking game. Aller throws another interception, throws it into real tight coverage. Ball gets tipped, picked off, third pick of the day. Woody Marks is running rampant for USC. Nobody has an answer for him in white. And still, Lincoln Riley finds a way to fumble this game away. Can anyone explain to me the rationale of why USC is draining the clock? They're still 15 yards away from field goal range. And again, hashtag college kickers, not exactly playing to win there. But Lincoln Riley and Miller Moss drain the clock. They run like a minute off the clock. And then Miller Moss finally snaps the ball and throws an interception. We go to overtime. Obviously, they lose. Again, they miss a field goal, a much shorter field goal than what they were trying to line up for in the first place. I don't know what to do with Lincoln Riley. And if we've got Penn State comments still, I mean, feel free to throw in anything you've got on the Nittany Lions. But I don't know what you do if you're USC. I think Lincoln Riley has exposed himself as a fraud at this point.
What you do is you acknowledge that Lincoln Riley was a product of Stoops at Oklahoma, and that's about it. This is his first season where, Stoops at Oklahoma hasn't had any real impact on him and his legacy. Remember, he had a lot of what his program was just kind of there, and he kind of got to just pilot that thing. And it worked. He kept the offense rolling, and things were still going well. But after all those players and all the cachet that came with Oklahoma left, and you finally got, quarterbacks are out, all the guys that came with you are kind of gone. What do you have? You have, a not very consistent team. You have a team that you think you're coaching up, and, Miller Moss, not necessarily a bad quarterback, but, not anything that I'm going to write home about. And he's had some good performances. He had some bad performances. I'm just not impressed with what Lincoln Riley's doing. You can't convince me he's a great head coach. And, I know that there's speculation about the NFL, and maybe someone's going to be foolish enough to take it, but I think he just kind of smells like Cliff Kingsbury right now. And I think a lot of teams are going to be hesitant to jump all over that.
Yeah, and I know, like, in the second half, obviously Penn State made some adjustments at halftime, but it just seemed like he kind of went away from what was working for him in the first half and the misdirection. And in that first half, USC looked so much faster than Penn State. I mean, that was the worry with those teams from the West Coast coming into the Midwest. Were they going to be so much faster with their athletes? And I mean, that looked to be the case in that first half. And then it just seemed like he stopped getting his guys in space. Yeah, Penn State made some adjustments, and then to your point on that last drive with, him just draining the clock, I'm confused as why James Franklin called a timeout. I mean, it lucked out because Miller Moss could have completed a pass, and they had 3 timeouts left. He could have called timeout, and they could have got a game-winning field goal. So it was clock management issues from both coaches, like it usually is with those two guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm with Garrett on Penn State or on USC. I don't see it right now for Riley. And I heard Josh Pate, on his show this week, kind of making the case for him, saying it was he's in the year 1 of his rebuild. And it's in year 3, but I'm like, you hired those coaches. You were the ones who hired Alex Grinch and kept him on for 2 years. Yeah. Don't just give him a pass because he made a terrible hire and finally corrected it with D'Anton Lynn.
That's the exact same attitude that says, well, Jimbo Fisher was year 6 of a rebuild. I'm like, you hired the people around you. Lincoln Riley doesn't get a pass on this one. Like, you had a legendary quarterback in this game that kind of floated you to some wins your first couple years. By the way, followed you over from Oklahoma. So that's why I'm talking about the whole Stoops legacy thing. Like, it's, you have nothing that you've really earned on your own, just through your own sort of, abilities as a coach, your own abilities as a recruiter. This is like definitionally born on third base and then decided to, go out to the coast and take a bunch of money. And turns out it didn't really work out. Grass wasn't greener. And maybe that's why he left, right? We talked about it at the time. Maybe he's leaving because he knows OU's going to the SEC and he wants to get out the way. I think there's kind of a point there. Like, I think there might be a point that he was trying to dodge the SEC, thought that the Pac-12 might be better. Well, turns out Pac-12 is not where you're playing anymore, buddy. You're in the Big Ten now. And maybe it's a lack of caring. Maybe it's a just kind of disengaged. He doesn't want to do it if it's not flashy. Like, I don't know what it is, but he ain't it.
Well, that's what's so frustrating to me is that each year that passes on, it's like we strip away another possible excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no matter what it is, the defense, the defensive line, the physicality in the trenches. Oh, well, we don't have the right wide receivers and to help our quarterback. And we can't run the ball, so we need a new running back. It's like whack-a-mole. Every time you watch him try and address an issue, something else pops up. And for me, it's like, okay, well, the buck stops with you at this point. You're 4-8 in your last 12 games. And some of those losses are heinous losses. Not just against like teams like Penn State where you found a way to fumble the bag, but just a waste of talent. And I don't know. I'm frustrated with watching. I don't care about USC football one way or the other. I'm not a USC fan. I'm not invested in them. This frustration is not born from any tie to the program. I just think it's a criminally under talked about topic. Like when we give Ryan Day or Dan Lanning last year crap about, hey, you made a terrible late game decisions and you can't win the big game. And I think there's validity to all of that criticism. But I would just like to see Lincoln Riley held to the same standard as some of these guys because he's cool guy Lincoln out there in his Los Angeles mansion. It's frustrating to me. So anyway.
And he can't grill steak.
And he has no idea what he's doing.
He doesn't know how to do brisket.
No idea what
he's doing. Anything, man.
Gracious him. How about that?